What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life's a Garden. You may have noticed we are in a completely different setting than the usual. That's because for the first time ever, we're recording on location, straight from the Mile High City. First time for the show. Today's guests, well, one of them has been on the show multiple times, and the other, this is her first appearance on the show. They just got married last year, coming in close on their 1-year anniversary. But first, we had to come to Denver for my boy's 30th birthday. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Pow and Mikayla Williamson.
Thanks for having us, my boy. It's been a minute.
Yes, sir. So, I think first things first, we might as well just start talk about the trip. Mm-hmm. It's been a great time.
Yeah.
Let's start from the beginning. How was the 14-hour drive from San Antonio?
Yeah. You want to start us off?
It was fine. It was long, but very uneventful, flat, until we got to Colorado, really. We listened to a book, listened to music. We had a ton of snacks. I don't know. It was pretty uneventful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, drove in from San Antonio. So, yeah, like you said, I think not MapQuest, but like Apple Maps or whatever says it's like 13 and a half hours, which we made pretty good time.
Yeah.
You know, most of Texas is just super flat, nothing to look at. Got an audiobook from the library. Support your public libraries. And, yeah, just jammed some of that, jammed a little bit of music. Didn't get too intense. Just pee breaks. We took a nice stretch break, I think, in Amarillo, Texas. We found a church in a parking lot. And we just started, doing jumping jacks. And
Yeah, we, blared music from the car and then just did dancing and stretching in the parking lot for, 5 minutes.
That's the worst part about road trips is just, especially long ones, is your legs get so tired. I was on an hour-long flight, and I was cramping up.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I will only ever fly here.
Yeah. That's because if your body is anywhere in the airspace of Wyoming, that's your kryptonite, so.
Yeah. So I'm going to repeat what I told you after I got off the plane, which was often when I'm flying, I think about mortality because people have, in fact, died on planes before. Mm-hmm. So the possibility is out there. And all I'm thinking about is if I die now, the last thing I'm going to see is the back of this numbnut's head. But I would much rather that than die anywhere in the state of Wyoming. Looking at the roads and all that crap.
Knowing your luck, the plane would go down.
In Wyoming.
In Wyoming, and you'd be the only survivor, and then you just have to wait.
Walk through all of Wyoming.
Walk through blood and bone and...
Yeah, and just you'll be roadkill.
I would die because of Wyoming. The elements would get me, not the plane crash.
Yeah, my sister and I would always count roadkill in Wyoming, because there's always a ton. There wasn't even roadkill in Texas. We couldn't even look at roadkill. It was just a lot of nothing. Because we also
no animals.
Yeah, we went back roads because it's highways, so it wasn't just the interstate. So it was
2-lane highways.
Yeah, which was fine for traffic. It never got too congested, so it was fine.
But I get scared to pass people on 2-lane highways, so I'll just get stuck behind someone going 40. And then I literally had the pedal to the floor whenever I pass someone. I'm I have to do this super fast, even though there's no one coming at me.
I barely like passing people on the interstate.
Yeah.
Especially semis or big trucks.
Yeah.
It's that gets gnarly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can only imagine especially if it's a big truck.
Yeah.
You got a longer distance to get past them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I like passing is gas.
Yeah.
I've learned that.
Less dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dakota
Still risky.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Dakota said that he heard my my morning bathroom session.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Pal goes, I finally got a good poop off. I was like, I'm aware. Proud of you though.
Yeah. That's a factor in traveling. I've noticed that my this is the first subject we're talking about on game day.
It was only a matter of time that poop was going to get involved.
Yeah. Just always on my mind.
Was always on my mind. You have a shy bowel just like I do when it
Not-
comes to like road trips.
I guess, yeah, when I travel, more when I fly, I think it must have something to do with the elevation change, and also been eating junk food the whole time, so I'm not getting like some good roughage in my belly, so that way it doesn't help it go out. I'm drinking more coffee, but that doesn't do it for me. I know you said it does it for you, though.
Oh. And you know what? I think it's weird. The fact that we're in an Airbnb makes it feel more like a home rather than like you're at a hotel. So I think it's partially mental and partially just like the change of environment, like you said, elevation and eating different foods that you're not used to. So I think a lot of that probably has to do with it. But
Yeah, like I said, though, it's game day, and I got a great one out, and so I'm ready to freaking go. I'm gonna be
Your best self right now.
I'm gonna be my best self.
it's just the day has already started off on a high note, so it can only, well, I guess technically it can only go down from here. But the poop was the best part of the day, and
Yeah.
God, I hope not. So yeah, we got the Nuggets game tonight. Well, wait, hang on, we gotta go back. So
So it was a good poop.
So then the first full day here, we picked Dakota up from the airport early, went to Fort Collins, did a hike.
My old stomping grounds, Fort Collins. That's where I lived when I was in Colorado. Lived there a couple of years, where I first kind of became a Denver sports fan. It was great, about an hour north of Denver.
Yeah, did a hike, little hike.
Horsetooth Falls.
Yeah,
The falls were in quotes.
barely falling.
but it was still cool. Like I even said just a few weeks ago that I've been wanting to do more outdoorsy stuff. I'm not a nature guy, but I would like to do more fishing, hiking, just getting out, trying something different, get out of the bars. Even though most of this trip we've been in bars, but,
Yeah, most of the trip.
but we started it off in nature, and that was cool. Like it wasn't a huge hike. It wasn't like overly exerting. It was like just the right amount.
Yeah, it was like a mile in and back. I think the elevation gain and loss was like 300, and so it was the best day to do it because that day it hit like 70, and so in the morning it was like maybe 60. There wasn't really any wind. There was cloud cover, so I know my white friends can get burned pretty easily. And
Your
you guys
white
were-
redhead friends.
yeah, my two gingies, my favorite gingies.
I didn't even bring any sunscreen, but thankfully God had me covered. And
We got sunscreen too.
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
we
that
did.
fanny pack is my Batman utility belt. I've got everything I ever need in there.
Well, I didn't really feel like I necessarily needed it. Like the weather was pretty nice, and
Yeah,
What about post hike? What did we do post hike?
we went to that pizza place.
Yep, Crazy Carl's.
Oh yeah,
Spelled with 2 K's.
that might have been my favorite meal so far this trip. We got pizza. We were supposed to go on a brewery tour, but the pizza that we ordered at the pizza place took forever. So we had a chicken bacon ranch pizza with green chilies and waffle fries on it,
Oh yeah.
and that was fantastic.
Green chilies are big here in Denver and Colorado. Like
Yeah.
that's their thing.
I was pleasantly surprised because I'm not an adventurous. As much as I'm not an adventurous person in nature, I'm not an adventurous person in the diner
In the
So-
diner.
or with anything food. So I was glad to have tried something new, and I enjoyed it. I was like, "Damn, this is really good."
Yeah, you had a couple of things. You had the sake too yesterday.
I've had sake before, but yeah, it's definitely not something I would normally drink.
Yeah, it's hard not to go beer. It's not. I know you're a Bud Light guy. So.
Yep. I don't really.
I watched last week's episode. I know.
Yeah. I don't even. Well, the thing I don't like to mix
Yeah.
beer or like beer
Different
with
types of
other
alcohol.
Yeah, because that's when things start getting.
If you're gonna mix it, you might as well do a car bomb.
However, oh god, car bomb or a trash can.
Yeah.
However, I will say this: when it comes to, I've noticed, at least for me, because I think everybody's body's a little different. Clear liquors or clear alcohols serve me better if I'm mixing it with beer.
Yeah.
Also, mixing craft beers with like light beers can get kind of dicey too for me. Although I have yet to really be hungover. I had like a little bit of headache yesterday, but
Yeah, that day. Okay, so we went to the brewery. We went to get pizza at Crazy Carl's. Crazy Carl's. The pizza that I wanted to get was pepperoni, green chilies, and cream cheese. And I remembered the first time I had that pizza, I was like, I didn't know you could put cream cheese on pizza. It's incredible because it sort of gets brown and bubbly over the top, and it's still warm and gooey in the middle. So awesome combo. I think I tried to make that at home once, but I used jalapenos instead of green chilies. Wasn't as good, but that was awesome. And then we went to the breweries, and like you said, we were mixing light beer with like craft beers. That coupled with it just being a really long day, I think that day after I was the most tired. I don't know if hungover is the right word, but I was definitely tired.
I mean, you guys had a long day the day before, and probably had gotten up pretty early still. I just got off a plane. Like, so progressively, I have slept worse as we've gone.
Oh, jeez.
Because the first night I was just like dead.
Because you're so tired, yeah.
And then I think it's just, I've never slept well, not in my own bed. And like last night I was just hearing a lot of noises. And I think it was just the heater and stuff. But I was like, is somebody walking around up there? Even this morning, I thought you guys were up walking around.
No, that's probably from one of those haunted paintings from the museum. There's a ghost that followed us. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's probably that one.
That devil Voldemort.
That devil dude. Or that like baby with a man's face.
Devil daddy. Yeah, which one?
Yeah.
All of them?
All the babies had man's faces.
Yeah, so
Man's face.
what did we end on day one?
The Avs game.
Oh, yeah.
It was a long day, and that was like you said, you had just gotten off the plane, and we were from the jump.
We did a lot.
I was gonna mention this too. Of all the cool things we'd expected to do, obviously the games were pretty high up on my priority list of exciting things. We went to the Avs game. We're going to the Nuggets game tonight. But one of my favorite memories was us driving from Fort Collins to Denver, just jamming some tunes and just belting out singing. It was so much fun. I lost my voice before the Avs game.
Yeah.
Lot of Disney so far.
Yeah.
And a nice just variety of different stuff.
Yeah. I think that one, I don't think we even started the Disneys yet when we did that drive because we had some Creed, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they were kind of just random good ballad singing songs.
Yep.
My wife is the greatest Hamilton rapper
Yes, that was very
of her
impressive.
skin tone generation.
Quite impressive.
Skin tone generation. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know all
Do you want to speak to your Hamilton
The
skills?
best
babe?
since Eminem.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at Eminem too. Yeah, I went through a pretty intense Hamilton phase, and just listened to the soundtrack over and over every single day, and pretty much know every word to every song. And I think it's like a 3-hour soundtrack. And I just think it's kind of normal. Like, it's kind of cool, but whenever I sing it to other people, they're like, "What?" So I don't know. I guess I'm pretty good at it.
Hey,
It's fun.
I enjoyed it. I've never even seen Hamilton, but I've heard. I'm not a musical guy.
Yeah.
Well, I am because I like Disney movies. So
Yeah.
anybody who says they're not a musical person is a liar. If
Yeah.
they like Disney movies,
Yeah.
What if they don't like Disney movies?
Then
they are an idiot.
Yeah.
Then they're one of those evil babies from the paintings.
Yeah.
So, I want your impression. Give me your impression of your first hockey game.
I would say tentatively, just like conservatively, about a 10 out of 10. It was super fun, especially the fact that we were so far down. We were in the 7th row, so we got to be pretty much right up on the glass. The Avs did win, which also helped. I was expecting it to be. It was cool because you walk in the stadium and it's cold from the ice. It was super loud because it was one of their last. It was the last home game, last home game of the season. They were still playing for something because they had to have playoff implications and seeding implications. Just a ton of fun. We didn't see any fights, which is one thing I was like hoping for a little bit of a fight. We got to see an empty netter. We got to see
We got to see a penalty shot,
a penalty shot,
which you barely see that ever.
Yeah, and it was on our goal, the side that we were on. So all in all, super fun, pretty clear. Like I was able to pay attention. I know enough of the rules of hockey. It's like just get the puck on the other side. And every time I didn't know a rule, I just lean over to you and be like, "Hey, so what's going on here?"
Why is there a penalty
Yeah,
here?
and then you'd tell me, and then I'd lean over to Mikayla as if I was an expert and I knew things. So it was super fun. That's right when Mariah came to join us as well, my sister who moved down to Denver about a month ago. So it was just a great experience with some people I love very much, and they won. So.
Dude, that you couldn't have seen a better game. Like 4-2, that's a pretty nice score.
Yeah, you
I
called the
predicted
score.
that score.
Yeah.
Yep.
We all made predictions beforehand. So you should have got the bets. We should have been like, we should just let you take control of the sports betting.
Yeah, no. It was just one lucky win. That's it.
Yeah, once money's involved, things change.
Yeah. And how many Avs games have you been to?
That was my third.
Mm-hmm.
My third, and wait.
Yeah, how cursed are you when it comes to Avs games?
I think, that was my third. So for some reason I had a vision that I had, well, that sounds weird to say it like that. I had like this memory of being down lower, like where we were sitting more than just the 2 times, but I guess it has only been twice. Because the other time we were sitting in a VIP box.
Oh, Mr. Fans. Oh, sorry, I've only sat right on the ice only twice because the other time I was in a VIP box. I mean,
I was 12, so I don't know how that even happened. But yes, I am quite cursed when it comes to Avs games, and not anymore. But I was 0-2 going into this game this weekend.
So that was your first live win.
It was
Cool,
which was nice, and especially being Stanley Cup champs, getting to come see them after they've won the cup. That was pretty nice, and to have them, it was a fun win.
Yeah,
and most of the action happened on the net. Even the ones that were against us.
For sure.
I think only 1 goal was made on the other end.
We had it happen later in the game, too. Most of the goals happened in the second and third period, so it was...
Which was good because Mariah couldn't show up until the second. What do you think of the game, babe?
It was my second Avs game. My first one was like a last-minute thing. My brother and I came to Denver for a Nuggets game. Didn't have anything to do the night before. Paid like $5 for Avs tickets, sat in the topmost row, and had so much fun. It was a rival game. So yeah, I love live hockey. I never, ever, ever watch hockey on TV, but I love watching live hockey. My dad and my grandpa grew up Avs fans too. So yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah, it was a great time.
Yep.
I'm glad that for your first experience, and that you said they won the first time?
Yeah.
So you're the lucky charm.
Yep.
And then, you got to see them win on your first game. That's pretty nice. Now we just need to
keep
clear
that
the
magic
table.
going.
Yep. So that was day 1. Day 2, 30th birthday.
That's right.
Yay.
Yeah. I could tell that I'm turning 30 because I can't bend my knees any more than this. I'm stuck like this. I haven't moved.
That's a lie. I saw you freaking turning yourself into a pretzel.
That's true. I had to stretch out after our full day at the museum.
You were definitely stretching way more than I could have done.
Yeah, which was good because I needed it after being in the car. My hamstring was tight for some reason, and it's like I don't know how that happens. I'm just sitting. I'm not even like crumpled up. I'm just sitting normally, and I can even stretch my leg out. But 14 hours sitting, I guess, will do things to you when you're not 29 anymore.
You said that was after the museum?
After the museum was when I stretched more because...
Yeah, well, I mean, between sitting and then walking. But you hiked, and then that museum was kind of a hike in itself.
Oh my gosh.
Also.
Yeah. So we started day 2 going to this coffee shop
Yep.
that I found.
We got to shout them out.
Yeah, it was Petunia's Bakery, Petunia's Coffee and Bakery, I think. Bake shop.
Or Petunia's Pastry?
Something.
Yeah, Petunia's.
Yeah. Amazing. Honestly, coffee was okay. But
It
Someone
was
burnt their mouth.
really cold.
someone drank a boiling coffee immediately and regretted it.
And I'm just now getting over it.
Yeah. But the pastries were phenomenal.
Super flaky. You had like a croissant. You had like a...
You had a
I
croissant.
had a croissant. I had a chorizo croissant.
I had a Danish.
Yeah.
But you had a croissant sandwich.
Oh. Yeah. And that was
Yeah.
tits.
You got free birthday cake at like 9 a.m.
Yeah, because I saw that they had a cheesecake. I was like, I need that cheesecake. And, well, I'll split it later tonight for birthday eateries.
And we snarfed.
Oh, yeah, we did. And they gave me like a piece of cake, which is like a funfetti piece of cake. It was fine. It's still in the fridge. But I'm also not a huge sweets guy. Cheesecake and pecan pie are a little different. And chocolate chip cookies and peanut butter cookies.
Okay.
Maybe I'm a sweets guy.
So then we went to the museum right after that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then it started snowing.
Oh.
Kind of. Sleeting, snowing.
It was coming down pretty good.
We were trying to debate between going to the Museum of Art or the Nature and Science Museum. So it's really just like, do you want to look at paintings or do you want to look at dinosaurs? And, we're mature. We wanted to get cultured. So we went to the art museum. because I'd been to, I hadn't been to an art museum other than the Yellowstone Art Museum, and which was cool, but it's like a lot of rustic, a lot of C.M. Russell stuff I wanted to see.
And it's pretty small.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to see some worldly things, so we got to see like really old stuff. I think the oldest thing that I saw there was like 3,000 years old.
Yeah.
It was like a pot from like Sumeria or something like that. That was kind of cool, but I really loved the paintings. But like you said, it was snowing, so we parked and walked, and Dakota was covered in some snow. He looked fancy, though. You were dappered up for that. That was our dapper day.
That was not the day to get dapper.
Yeah.
And not the day for me to not have like a overcoat that I should have brought. I should have just wore that on the plane, and I could have packed my hoodie, but I also wasn't preparing for snow. It was still fun, though. And then we went to a British pub after that.
Yeah.
How had a warm ale.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it was cool. That's the way they serve beer in the olden days in Britain. So I was like, I wanted a dark beer because it was snowing
That's how they
out.
served beer during the plague.
Yeah. And my ancestors survived the plague. I guess everybody's
All of our
in
ancestors.
Britain.
yeah. But
Your ancestors survived smallpox, okay?
that's true.
Yes.
Yeah. And we got free blankets.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a win-win.
So that's why I had a warm flat beer.
Yeah. But I thought it was really good, which I'm glad that neither of you guys liked it, because then I got to drink the whole thing.
It was disgusting.
I didn't even try it because I'm not crazy.
No, it was gross.
I knew, all I had to do was see the look on your face. And I was like, yeah. Because you like beer that I don't like. Mm-hmm. You're an IPA drinker, which is, I mean, to be fair also, you had me try a couple IPAs that I was not, I didn't hate. So.
Yeah. So that was the British pub, like a block away from the museum, which was really cool. We'd spent, like 3 or 4 hours walking around the museum.
Yeah, I was crawling by the end of it because I didn't wear tennis shoes and it was tough, but
Yeah, a lot of Native American artwork. We did see like an Asian wing.
Yeah. The Northwest tribal wing was super cool with like the giant totem poles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Like the Alaska native kind of things, yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool seeing like Renaissance paintings because it made me want to get a big Renaissance painting for my house. The bigger the painting, the better it is, even if it's not a good painting.
You'd be excited about that. We'd go to a new room and you're like, oh, it's a big painting in this one.
Yeah, you can walk up to it and you feel like you can jump in. That's what I'm here for.
The frames make a huge difference too because it makes it so you feel like you're getting enveloped by it because a lot of those frames kind of pop out, which is I was kind of fascinated by the framework of a lot of those paintings.
Yeah, and we got to see stuff from artists that we recognize. Like I said, we saw a bunch of C.M. Russell things because he's huge in Montana, so that was kind of cool in the native wing and the Western art wing. And then we saw a couple Monets.
Which was dope.
Yeah, we saw those. We saw the Asian section had this really cool giant table with a sand mandala on it. Apparently, it's a specific thing that the monks or priests or whatever, they made in-house, and it was just so intricate. It was probably 5 times as big as this little coffee table here.
We'll check out Dakota's Facebook page for a picture of it.
Yeah, and it was incredible. Just every grain of sand, and the color detail in it was so intricate. It's I can't even build a sand castle that doesn't fall apart in 2 seconds. How do you use that many tiny grains of sand, such specific colors?
And they weren't blending against each other,
No,
unless it was on purpose.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was one of the top
Yeah.
things that we saw there.
Yep. That was cool.
Then we went to the other pizza. Oh wait, we went
Brewery.
to Prost.
Prost, that I thought was Probst the whole time, but it wasn't.
We were ready for a good
Probing.
beer probe. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of probe jokes. That was okay.
And then the pizza place.
Yeah, Happy Camper.
Yes,
That was a cool place. They had giant disco balls everywhere and cool lights everywhere, and it had an outdoor patio thing. That was a cool place.
Yeah. And
what did we think of the pizza there?
I thought it was good, not as good as the first one, because that one's
agree.
that has hits the spot for me.
But they had breadsticks with goat cheese in the marinara sauce that you dipped in, and that was phenomenal.
Yeah, that was a winner for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then my favorite place of the whole trip, maybe ever in my life, probably my favorite bar I've ever been to in my life. I found it online. It's called Forest Room 5. I said the name wrong a million times. It's a forest-themed bar. It was super rainy and cold outside, but they had an outside portion that has a creek through it and a teepee and just trees and plants and logs, and everywhere is like green plants. And then the bar itself looks like a log cabin on the inside. And we went downstairs and it's just like the coziest, it's probably the ice maker. It's just like this little cozy cabin bar. There's like a big fireplace and it was just, the vibe was so cool. It was really dark. There was one arcade game in there that was just chilling. Animals on the walls, animal heads. It was so cool.
Yeah, they had like cocktails and stuff, so like we kind of had rustic sort of vibing cocktails.
Yeah, there was like a fire right there.
Yeah.
We were playing trivia.
Yeah.
Trivial Pursuit. So we had my sister and her friend and you on a team, and then us two. So it was a good intense trivia battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the first time in my life, and I think the first time in your life too, we ran the table on one of the cards.
On a Trivial Pursuit card, like,
Yeah.
those things are not easy. Mm-hmm. My favorite was, Big Bertha was pretty great.
Yeah.
So the question was, what
Cannon.
what World War I cannon was named after like Bertha something or whatever?
Yeah.
And the answer was Big Bertha. And so the girls' team, we said that right away as like a joke. We're like, oh, that would be funny if that was it. Haha. And then spend a couple minutes trying to think of a real answer. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I think that might actually be the right answer. Let's just go for it. And it was. So Big Bertha was funny.
Mm-hmm. And then we had a similar one with your answer.
Yeah, go for it.
What was it?
The question was, what are Arnold Palmer's fans referred to as?
Yeah.
And we were just rattling off stuff. And we were at this point, we were pretty like tuned up.
Yeah.
So everything was kind of being funny.
Yeah.
We were just being silly. And I was just like, oh, what about Arnie's Army? And we just were cracking up. Like, that was just so funny.
Then we couldn't think of a better guess.
And we were just like, let's just pick one that we thought is a good one. And then we were just like, let's go with Arnie's Army. And that's what it was.
And I think that was like your winning one, maybe? Or close.
I think
So,
that
like,
was
you're
the
winning.
I think that was the question. That was the card before our winner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My least favorite question was,
Yeah.
what is the singular word for scampi? So apparently scampi is like plural, like shrimp scampi. But there's like, what is the singular word for it? And like, that's so stupid because nobody knows that.
And it was scampo,
Scampo.
which is
So if you ever want to go get
I'd like a
pasta,
scampo.
a shrimp scampi, but you don't want a lot of shrimp, you only want one, make sure you order a shrimp scampo.
I'll take it.
That was
Well,
so dumb.
Or what about New York, New York?
Oh, that was stupid too. That was like, what movie popularized the song New York, New York? And we sat there forever thinking of all these different movies. And the freaking answer was New York, New York. That was the name of the movie as well as the song. That was frustrating too.
Yeah, the thing with trivia is you really need, this is from experience that we've had at bar trivia places, and then we watch Jeopardy all the time. You need generational thinkers. You need someone that's been a part of the older generation. You need someone kind of our generation, and then someone younger to get like the references that we don't get. And because it can all be pop culture, but unless you like, I'm not going to know pop culture from the 1960s. I'm not going to know what New York, New York is. I've never seen it.
In the Bones.
In the Bones. That was a good one too.
Okay, so did we go any? We just came back here and played games.
Well,
after that.
we tried to go to a couple other bars, but we couldn't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They were busy.
book one.
There was a
Yeah.
speakeasy that like the storefront looks like a bookstore.
I
And
think it is a real bookstore.
yeah, and then you walk in and it's just this small room. You tell them that like, hey, I'm here for the books, and they open a back door and it's
I'm
this
here for the books.
and it's a cool, fun, like super
Speakeasy.
cool cocktails and stuff. We didn't get to go in, and there was one dude being an a-hole, some Australian dude in front of us that didn't understand the concept.
Jacked Australian dude that was like yelling at the host at the table because there
he
wasn't
couldn't
a
get in.
table for him, and he was really mad. So that was funny.
And I only caught part of it. You guys were mostly like right up there, but I heard her say like, well, that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
Or something like
Yeah.
that.
Like that's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we came back here and played games.
Played some board games a little bit.
Yep.
It was nice. So yeah, all in all, top tier birthday. So it was great. And like I said, it was cool just hanging out with you guys in the city. And
And you got to have pizza.
yeah, and I think
I was a pizza boy.
I was surprised how much I loved the museum. I really liked the museum. That was super cool. So
Yeah, I was also surprised because, again, something I wouldn't normally choose to do. So getting to do it, you're like in the middle of it. You're like, this is kind of nice. Like this is enjoyable, especially because it's stuff like you probably never would get to see any other time. And then that wasn't yesterday, was it?
That was the day
No.
before. So then yesterday would have been the next day.
Yeah, we went to Denver Biscuit Company.
Yeah.
Which has always been on my list and highly recommended for things to do.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's the best part about, or one of the best parts about being with her is that she does the research, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll go wherever. If there's somewhere with pizza, even better. But if not, if there's beer, I'll be fine. And so she made a whole spreadsheet of a bunch of cool Denver things.
Yeah,
to
can we
check
talk
out.
about your spreadsheet addiction real quick?
I
'Cause,
love Excel.
Well, I love the organization of it, but you are one of the only people I've ever met that I've like is so organized to always. Check. Okay. Yeah, you're the only person I've ever personally met. I'm not sure you're not the only person ever, but makes spreadsheets about everything. I love it, but let's talk about it.
What's the most obscure spreadsheet you've ever made?
I don't know. I think the weird thing is like when I like share them with other people. Like I don't think it's weird to like kind of make your own
Sure.
organizational little sheet. But then like so for our wedding, the wedding one was probably like the fullest, the most robust spreadsheet I've made, and like to-do list things for the wedding. But then I had like a schedule it's all color coded obviously, and I shared it with like our entire wedding party and our families, so they knew like what we were going to be doing every day of the
That half
weekend.
of them didn't look at, so they'd have to text you or call you anyway.
Yeah, which whatever. My favorite spreadsheet is our budget spreadsheet that we have, and like I update it like every Friday, and I like look forward to it. I look forward to like Fridays where I can just like update the spreadsheet and like add a couple like formatting things, and I don't know, it just clicks in my brain like the visual rows and columns. And I don't know, I'm saying all my favorite ones now. I'm a big Taylor Swift fan, and I ranked all like 150 of her songs on a spreadsheet and color coded them all by album. So that was a fun one too. But
I completely understand it though. Like I don't do it necessarily, but I get writing it down, like writing down whatever schedules or like that, like making a list, because I've done that before too, just not using a spreadsheet, which actually makes more sense because like you said, you can color code things. And
You
stuff.
have a pretty extensive notes section in your phone.
Yeah.
Like I've seen your karaoke songs like section, and I know you've got a ton of other stuff in your notes section.
So like it does make sense to me to like visually have to see. And then I have such a terrible memory anyway that like it helps to go back and look and see what you've planned or things that maybe you would have forgotten otherwise.
yeah, and I think you forget that how much better it is to see a visual aspect of, like at work we had like a new client, and we had a bunch of different people working with this client. Everyone was confused about what day and time each therapist was going to show up. And I'm just like, guys, and I just plugged it into an Excel sheet, like the schedule, took a screenshot and texted it to everyone. And they're like, oh, this makes sense. And I'm like, yeah, it's so much better when you can see. And part of my job too is like graphically analyzing like data. So I know that like it's so much easier to see, I don't know, like the data that you're trying to see if it's on a graph or a chart.
I might adopt this.
Yeah.
We'll send you formats of all the stuff we've got.
I have templates.
Do you just download like,
Nope. She
No,
makes it
I just
from
make
scratch.
it.
well, so the Excel app, is that like an app
Oh,
or?
yeah.
Oh, just Google Sheets.
Google Sheets
Oh,
is like,
okay.
yeah, I have Excel because as a student I get it for free, but I don't pay for the Microsoft stuff. So I just use Google Sheets most of the time. I think Excel is better. I also don't know a ton about Sheets and Excel. Like there's a ton that I don't know how to do. But Google Sheets is free, so it's good enough.
Yeah, and so like I said, she's excellent for all those organizational things because I'm more of an ideas guy. So I'll come up with an idea, and then she'll make a full chart on like how exactly we like accomplish it step by step. So it's changed my life in an organizational way, which is really cool and tangible. And it's also there's a record of things. So it's like you have a record of whatever you're trying to accomplish. My favorite sheet is I've explained this to you before, and I think I talked about it on the podcast before. Our movie blockbuster draft. So it's essentially like a fantasy football format, but for movies over the course of the year. And so since I moved to Texas, I moved away from the other guys that are in the league. So we did have a physical draft board that Theo and I made together, and you can put physical indicators of what movies you have that you've drafted on there. But since I moved away, we wanted a different way to like keep it updated rather than just sending pictures of that board back and forth to each other. So we made a spreadsheet online that everybody can go in and look at and edit. And now it's color coded and with the dates that movies come out and up to date like scoring and stuff. So that's super fun, and that's my favorite one. I literally check that every day. I check it when I have my morning poop to bring it back to
full circle.
And so that's great. But I'm glad that you check the budget stuff because that's one less thing that I have to do, and I'm glad you like it because that helps.
And I've shared our budget template spreadsheet with like 4 or 5 people, and they've used it. So if anyone needs a budget template spreadsheet.
What about our SNL draft?
Oh,
yeah, that too. That was on there.
That was on a spreadsheet,
Yeah,
kind of.
that did make it, because you were filling it out as it was on the screen,
Yep.
so I was like, okay, it was
Yeah.
easier for me to like see how it was playing
We
out.
shared it up on the screen as we were drafting it.
And you had a whole list of draftable players, I guess,
Yeah.
technically.
Yeah, and I would say we would have to do something like that for fantasy football, but you already have the app. Whereas like these random things that we like want to draft for, there's not like an app for fantasy movie or fantasy SNL characters or whatever.
That's something we should do before this trip is over.
Do another draft?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd be down.
We talked about doing Marvel,
We talked about doing Marvel draft, yeah.
or we could do whatever. Like,
Yeah.
we tried to think of different ones, right?
Yeah.
So for anybody who might be unaware of what we are talking about, which is everybody, we did a SNL draft where we were drafting our cast of SNL, like who we thought would be like an ultimate cast from a pool of just like fantasy football. And so, but now we've also talked in the past about doing a Marvel draft, and I can't remember. We had a couple other ideas too, and I can't remember what it was.
That was a long time ago. Yeah.
But I mean, we could do like sitcoms, just as like what a binge night would.
Yeah. So we drafted our own like cast. There are a couple stipulations. We had to have a certain number of males and females, whatever. And then we shared each of our lists with friends and family, I think. And
Or
had them
no, you were on
vote.
like a page, right?
Oh yeah, we were on like a Facebook group, and we shared it with that and voted. And Dakota's won and was a lot better than both of ours. But
Yeah.
Pow was stuck in the early.
Yeah, I was stuck in
2000s.
the era that I watched, so I had
Which
like Andy
makes sense.
Samberg and all of them, and so like, of course, I felt like I had the best one, but I think if you go by pedigree, yours was
pedigree.
yours was great. But to the same point of the comedians thing, I wanted to bring up our discussion we had in the car yesterday about Will Ferrell,
Yes.
Jim Carrey, and Adam Sandler. Do you want to like preface sort of where we started with all that?
So it started because I was curious because I love Adam Sandler, and I just wanted to get the hot, like the room's temperature of everyone else's feelings on Adam Sandler. And then we started talking about comparing him
Carrey.
to guys like Jim Carrey and Will Ferrell, who are also like very lead comedic actors and give a lot of movies and stuff like that where like they're the lead. And so I think that's like the main comparison are those three. They kind of come from a similar era. They still are active. And so the conversation was who rank them 1, 2, 3 as your favorite to the least favorite. And then we were talking about top 3 movies of theirs or like their top movies and pitting those against each other and why we think that and stuff like that. And my conclusion on it was I have to put Adam Sandler number 1 because it's more of a childhood thing, and it just like I've always just been an Adam Sandler guy, so I can't betray my boy. And then Jim Carrey number 2, Will Ferrell number 3, which is a hard thing to say because I love all 3 of them.
Yeah.
And then your guys,
Yeah, we all had different
we did, yeah.
rankings. So I have Will Ferrell number 1, Jim Carrey number 2, Adam Sandler number 3. And we actually agreed though that like Jim Carrey probably has higher highs
And the other
than
3.
the other 2.
Oh yeah, sorry.
But I had Will Ferrell first because of the breadth of his work, I guess you would say. I don't know, more highs. We talked about Will Ferrell being like a plateau.
I would say yeah, exactly. Will Ferrell has like a couple of just like bangers that are always there, but then he has more like above medium
Yep.
movies.
Yeah. And yeah, growing up, yeah, my dad loved Will Ferrell and Jim Carrey, and I remember always like he'd be laughing so hard at these movies, and I'm like playing in my room. I'm like, what's going on? So I always wanted to like Jim Carrey and Will Ferrell, even like as a kid, because my dad watched them, and so those are top two. Yeah.
I would definitely have to say it's like not even a close contestant who has the worst movies as Adam Sandler. Like I think it's because I can agree with that. Like between the three of them, who holds the most terrible movies that you cannot that are just so hard to watch? It's Adam Sandler. But even still, like his best movies for me are just that much closer to my heart. Yeah. Although it is hard to not say Jim Carrey because of like Dumb and Dumber. Grinch, Liar Liar. There's one I feel
Ace
like
Ventura.
Ace Ventura. Yep.
Yeah, and that was my factoring in because my list went Jim Carrey and then Will Ferrell and then Adam Sandler. For each of these guys, one of our stipulations was kind of that you understand if somebody's annoyed with them as like an actor, and so if someone says like, "Oh, I don't like Jim Carrey," I differ. But I get it. I understand if his like zaniness or whatever is not your vibe. Similarly with Will Ferrell, although I feel like Will Ferrell is the most like commonly accepted.
Like palatable.
Like my mom likes Will Ferrell. She doesn't like Jim Carrey as much. So I get that. That's kind of my litmus test in my head is like, well, does my mom like this? Because she's a very well-versed movie watcher, but she also is just a more better representation of the general audience than like us who are like really into specific things. So I get if people don't like certain ones, and that's how I feel about like half of Adam Sandler's stuff.
Well, and I agree with what you just said as far as like I understand when people I understand when people don't like Adam Sandler because in the same sense with Jim Carrey, they both have like these tendencies that you either love or hate. Mm-hmm. Where like you said, Will Ferrell is a little more palatable in general. Like he doesn't really have that like overacting zaniness where the other two do. Mm-hmm. So you either love it or you hate it, which I love both Adam Sandler and Jim Carrey's styles.
Yeah, and for me, like I said, that Adam Sandler can be the most annoying out of the three to me. And then it was, if I was to break it down between Will Ferrell and Jim Carrey, I went with like what the top tier is, and Dumb and Dumber is not even no stipulations in my top like 5 all-time movies and one of my most quoted movies of all time. So that almost alone like raised his whole status. Because if I had like 5 movies to watch on a desert island, that would be one. And I don't think that a Will Ferrell movie or an Adam Sandler movie would make the cut. Adam Sandler wouldn't. Will Ferrell probably wouldn't either. And so that was kind of my metric going in.
Mm-hmm.
And what was everybody's top movie of each actor?
I think we agreed that Dumb and Dumber was.
Yeah, I think Dumb and Dumber was all of our number ones.
God tier, yeah.
My number 2 was Step Brothers. That's like the next most quotable, rewatchable for me.
That was your number 1, Will Ferrell?
Number 1, Will Ferrell, but yeah, second to Dumb and Dumber, I guess. Yeah, and then I think Adam Sandler was Big Daddy.
Yeah, and I agreed with Big Daddy. I think Anchorman for me is Will Ferrell's for my personal.
Mm-hmm. I had my first emotional connection to Night at the Roxbury. That was my first favorite movie.
Yeah.
And I'd like pretty sure I actually peed my pants laughing at the scene where he busts the window open with his head banging. It's so dumb, but that was like exactly what I wanted when I was like, I don't know, 10 years old or whatever. But I think since then it's been supplanted with either a probably Step Brothers. I quote that more than I quote Anchorman. But yeah, it's either Step Brothers or Anchorman for Will Ferrell.
What's your favorite Adam Sandler movie?
Adam Sandler movie, I'd probably go with like, I just don't watch them enough as much as I watch the other ones to like have a favorite. I enjoy Happy Gilmore, Mr. Deeds. I really liked Uncut Gems. It's not a comedy movie, but that was a really good movie. Not one I'd really rewatch either. So I think that's the best made movie of those. But I'm going to have to say Jack and Jill.
So of the three of them, who do you think is the better dramatic actor?
I think
It's interesting because I feel like they each have like a little tiny window where they did that, and it's so interesting.
The sample size is very small.
We didn't talk about this yesterday, so I'm not prepared with an answer.
Because, okay, so just for examples, Adam Sandler, obviously you said Uncut Gems. Mm-hmm. I would also throw, I guess you could say Punch Drunk Love. Mm-hmm. I've never seen it.
50 First Dates is right on that line. It's not dramatic, but it's not zany.
Yeah. I would a movie probably not a lot of people have seen. I don't know if you have. Is Reign Over Me. Highly recommend.
Oh yeah.
By Adam Sandler. That was his first real like dramatic role that I saw, and it was fantastic.
I did cry watching Click.
Me
Oh,
too.
we didn't talk about Click yesterday.
I forgot. Yeah, me too.
Click.
Click is up there. I think Jim Carrey, Truman Show.
Yep.
That's probably what I would use as a standard because Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind isn't my vibe. I totally get that it's a good movie, but it's just not my jam.
But it still falls under the category of dramatic acting.
Yeah, and the number 23, I think he was just trying too hard.
Yeah.
But The Truman Show, I really enjoy as a movie. I don't know how much of that is attributed to him as a dramatic actor and how much of that is just like the plot of the movie and sort of the vibe. But also, he's the main star, obviously, of that because that's what the whole movie is about as well.
Yeah.
And so that's his one I use in this metric. I use Uncut Gems as Adam Sandler's. And just for that alone, he might take it.
What's a Will Ferrell one? I'm drawing a blank here.
The only non-comedy Will Ferrell movie I can think of is that Stranger Fiction.
Oh, Stranger Than Fiction.
Which
was a very weird movie.
very forgettable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all I got too. So for that, I would have to say Will Ferrell at the bottom just because of
Lack of content.
And I'm sure there's got to be something else that we're just not thinking of. But
Yeah, we'll come back to it if it pops in my head while we're going.
Yeah.
But don't forget about Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah.
Not a dramatic role, but
Yeah. So I think for that, which is weird because it's the opposite of my other rankings, is Will Ferrell. I mean, is Adam Sandler, and then
Jim Carrey,
and then Will Ferrell.
I agree with that.
I haven't seen Uncut Gems though, so I'm gonna trust you.
Yeah. Which Uncut Gems, we felt Uncut Gems vibes this trip because we are. I don't sports bet as much, but because it's not legal in Texas. But since we're in Colorado, it's like a small window where like we can sports bet, and we're going to these games. So I'm gonna
leave and come back when y'all are done talking about this.
Oh, that's fine. We got plenty to talk about. We're talking about our over-unders. We're talking about our parlays. We're talking about our boosted parlays, same game.
DraftKings, everybody.
Yeah. So what we did, I don't know if, I know it's not sponsored by anything like that, but what I did when I came back for Christmas was I saw that there was a promo going on that if you bet $5 as a first-time customer on DraftKings, you get $150 in free bets. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll try that out. We were in the airport in Denver on the way up to Montana, and I was like, I downloaded it because it's geolocated, so you can only do it in states where it's legal. I was like, all right, cool. I'll place this $5 bet. I placed it on the Nuggets, and then flew to Montana. Nuggets won. I was like, cool. I got $150 in free bets. It's not legal to do it through DraftKings in Montana, and so that $150 expired without being bet on anything. So it was just crushing. I was considered driving down to Wyoming to place a sports bet, but I didn't do it. So I didn't want to miss out this time. So I actually signed up with your social security number.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
you can only do it one per person, and he had done that over Christmas. And so when we're in Denver right now, he wanted to do it again. And so I think it was like yesterday morning. I'm like, just wake up, and you're like, can I use your social security number? And I'm like, nope.
I was like, well, if we win, I'll just split the winnings with you because it's going in our account anyway.
You finally convinced me, but I was like, no, thanks.
The perks of being married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a great segue. Oh my gosh, if this mic would work. Oh my god. I should preface by saying these are not the normal mics that I use, so if there's any like weird audio or like anything in this whole episode, I apologize. I could not get the full gear on the plane. I was sweating that I was even going to get any of this. So anyway, let's talk about your first not even full year of marriage. Mm-hmm. Has anything changed? Have you noticed anything different, or how's that been?
You want to start it off?
Okay, here we go.
It's great. I don't know. I kind of always say, like, we haven't been doing this for very long, but I'm like, it's pretty great and easy so far, and I don't know when is going to come the time, because everyone's like, oh, just wait till you get to 3 years or 10 years or 20 years. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. Like, I don't know. It's pretty fun and easy and great so far.
Yeah, that's kind of like the consensus. What is going on here? Okay, maybe I fixed it. The consensus usually is that after you get married, things seem to change for some whatever reason.
I think for us, we tried to make sure we communicated as much as possible going in, and so we established a really solid foundation of as much open communication, talking through potential issues before they happen, emotional regulation, and the cornerstone being like our faith and knowing that like it comes from loving each other more than like giving of yourself for the other person, and that being reflected most in a marriage. And so those kind of pillars helped us to, you can take those and apply them to any situation, and you're still going to have arguments, you're still going to have like tough issues and things that happen, but you can get through all those so far that we've seen, which is why we're confident going forward, that no matter what happens, we can be prepared for it.
Yeah, the communication is huge. Being honest, being vulnerable. We talked about a lot. And then early on, I kind of, not a rule, but like made like a standard of like everything that we say to each other has to be like loving and productive, especially like when we're disagreeing. Like you said, like, yeah, we can disagree, but like, let's try to move towards like a common ending. Let's try to like still make sure we're talking to each other in like a loving way. I don't know. It's easy. Not always, but
yeah, I think it's
talking to each other about everything.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's us learning each other, because like the first couple months, when we didn't really have any arguments, didn't have any disagreements, but then when we did, we had to learn how to communicate effectively when we disagree.
Yeah.
So if that means, let's take 5 minutes because I just need to breathe because my brain's not going to be able to process things right now, and then we come back to it. If it's, okay, let you speak your whole piece and apologize rather than trying to like justify myself or whatever. That's like our biggest one, because we both think we're pretty smart and we both like to rationalize all of our actions. Mm-hmm. So I know for me, at least, it's been if I say something the wrong way or do something the wrong way and she feels slighted by it, it's hard for me not to immediately be like, oh, this is actually what I meant, and I wasn't trying to hurt your feelings or whatever, and justify it that way. Oh, you won't feel bad if I tell you why I did it. Instead of immediately right off the top being like, oh, that made you feel bad? I am sorry for that. And then eventually, if necessary, come back to justifying it or explaining it or whatever. But in the moment, kind of addressing the emotional need first before jumping into the rationalization.
Yep.
That's been huge for me.
Yep, and I have a similar problem. I've learned a lot about like emotions and communication, and validating the other person's feelings is super important. But like, yeah, if you say something or do something that like hurts someone else's feelings, I immediately want to justify what I did and be like, oh yeah, but I did it because of this. Like, this is what I was thinking. But the other person's not hearing that because their feelings are hurt. So it's just important to like put your ego down for a second, use empathy, realize that you have to first like validate how the other person felt, apologize for making them feel that way. And then like you said, like, then you can maybe go through the details and logistics of like why you did what you did. But that's been, on one hand, it's been hard for both of us, but on the other hand, it's good because we both kind of have the same problem. Mm-hmm. So we can recognize it in each other and give each other grace when we do that.
Yeah, that's been huge. That goes both ways, is understanding that we're on the same team. So it's really a trust thing. Because if I trust that her intentions are never to hurt me or to like put me down for her own benefit. If I can just like across the board say, whatever decision you're making, whatever emotional way you're reacting, whatever you're doing, I believe and trust that you do care about me and that you're doing this for the benefit of both of us. And she knows the same about me. So when we do have disagreements, when it seems like from the outside, it's like, oh, well, why do you say that? Do you like not love me anymore? That's not a factor in it. So there's a built-in grace to that, to be like, okay, this is not necessarily the way that I would have approached that, but I trust that you're not doing this maliciously, and that saves a lot of hurt egos. Because if you think someone's being malicious to you when they disagree with you, it's really easy to get defensive, as opposed to, oh, I believe you're loving me a way that I would love differently. Tell me about that.
That's great. That's great. Yeah.
Do you think that maybe, like your studies and like what you're studying helps with that, and like has been able to like, so for everybody, explain like what it is that you're majoring in?
Yeah. So I'm getting my master's degree in a month. I graduate in a month.
Congrats.
My degree is technically educational psychology, but in practically it's behavior analysis. So I get the little bit of psychology aspect, but it's really like how to, I don't know, analyzing behavior. And in my job is helping autistic kids behave better. But yeah, so I think on one hand, one of the things that has helped is past relationships, because we've both had multiple past relationships, and I've learned what not to do over and over and over again, that I have like really high standards. And then I guess kind of like what I'm studying, but really it's more of like personal studying. Like I read a lot of psychology books. I read a lot of Brené Brown and books about communication and empathy, and I'm really into emotional intelligence, emotional regulation skills. I think it's super important. So I just personally try to learn as much about that as I can, because that is also part of my job, is not just like, behavior, like sitting still when the teacher's talking, but like how to communicate is, I guess, yeah, part of my job too. So yeah, I think has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and what the like emotional and cognitive motivations are behind people's actions, like emotional regulation, brain being flipped.
Yeah. So I have this analogy that I use with my little autistic kids that I think applies to like everything too. Is
To Pow.
Yeah, is like
There's a lot that applies to autistic kids that applies to like dog training.
it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same
Yeah.
thing.
Oh,
That's how, like, when
And-
she first explained it to me, I was like, okay, no, now I kind of get what you're doing, how you analytically observe a behavior, try to find out a motivation, and look to, like, intervene it.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, this is how you potty train a dog or whatever. And this is how you get a kid to start making their bed or to stop, like, hitting their teacher or whatever,
Yeah, it's all like the function of the behavior, the reason for the behavior. But emotionally, if you think about your brain and you use like your thumb as your like
Amygdala.
the amygdala, which is like the feeling part of your brain, which is like deep in the middle of your brain. And then your fingers are the thinking parts of your brain, the whole outside of it. Normally your brain's like this, so your thinking parts are working. Your logic, reasoning are working.
We kind of talked about this when we talked about drinking, about how, like, your inside of your brain gets filtered through, like, your logical thinking part.
Yeah.
And then when you're drinking,
So you can still feel emotions, but your emotions get filtered through reason and logic normally. When those emotions get heightened, I tell my kiddos, like, your brain flips, like you flip your lid, and the emotion part is like exposed and takes over and hijacks your like reasoning in your logical thinking. And then you have to calm your brain down to think through like that emotion. So I use that with my kiddos, especially with kids with autism that struggle with communication and already struggle with that rationalizing. Anything that upsets them is just like it's flipped, and then they can't really communicate what they want. So noticing when your brain is flipped, when you're reacting more, and acting more off emotion instead of logic. Yeah.
I really liked that explanation. That made a lot of sense. So, but do you think that your understanding of relationships and like and that cognitive aspect of things has helped you in your current relationship now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Like you're able to like dually use your study for not only others' benefit but your own.
Yep. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, and I've felt that it doesn't, not in the sense that like she's training me. Sometimes she is.
It is.
Yeah, which is for my benefit and for our benefit. But like I'm cool. I'm not like saying like I'm too good to be a beneficiary of any type of therapy, because everybody should go to therapy. And so like if there's something that I'm doing that I want to do less, I know that she has the tools to be like, oh, you want to, I don't know, read more. Oh, let's find out like a reward system for you or whatever, stuff like that. Because it's really easy to have, like I said, I'm an ideas guy. So I'll have like a goal, a big, broad, vague goal, and which is, you know, what these autistic kids are going through. They have a goal, and so her job is to dissect it into what will motivate you and what are the steps you can take in between, so that way we can go from point A to point B, as opposed to me saying, oh, I want to read more, opening up a book and reading like an hour one day and then never coming back to it after a month, and then just like, that's how a lot of goals go by the wayside. So her whole system, she used to also be an elementary school teacher, so we have goal boards, like color-coded on the wall, so imagine all the spreadsheets, but also splattered across the wall of our bedroom, that really helped to kind of motivate us and get us going. So, and we have joint goals as like a couple too that we play off together. So she's brought a lot of the analytical, scientific, understanding based information into our shared goals, and I feel like I bring a lot of the spiritual aspect side of it too, because you walked through a journey of faith and came to faith after we had been together for a while before we got married. And I feel like I have that perspective, like I have been more steeped in that perspective. And as you learn and grow, it's really awesome too, because I can see that in you bringing into our relationship as well, just as much as like you teach me something about behavioral therapy and I bring that into a conversation. So we're kind of melding both worlds. And it's impossible for you to have strong faith and an understanding of like analytical behavior and not like apply those to every single thing you do. And it makes a huge difference. Like I said, things go wrong and just there's random things that happen, but those are a huge cornerstone of how much fruitfulness we have in our lives right now.
Well, and I think just based on hearing what you guys were saying there, it also is very beneficial for you to be open-minded to like what the other is saying and not be so like closed off. Like that's very important to like understand like why you're doing this or why you're saying this, and like not just be like, well, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like I think it's this way. You're actually willing to like listen and hear the other one out. And I think that's very important in a relationship.
Yeah.
Take notes, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's what sort of like on a deeper level to answer your question of like how it is. But as far as just sort of day-to-day like benefits of being married, I mean, sex is awesome. I mean, you know, I'm having a good time, and that also talks to the open communicative nature, because that's a huge part of any relationship. And we talk through everything. We're vulnerable with each other, and we're giving with each other. And I don't know, I could see this model working well until like our old age. So I don't see it being like a quick flame type of thing and then it like sort of peters out. We actually have a very cool system that we decided every Valentine's Day, we're going to discuss with each other and be super vulnerable and open to say like, hey, is there anything in our relationship that you think we could improve on, that we could do well, to change? Because it can be really tough in the moment to say like, hey, I think, you're not doing this well, or I'm not feeling loved in this way or whatever. It's really tough to kind of like just bring that up and not let that be a thing you get used to. Over time, things slowly change, and it's not like a quick snap of the fingers to say like, oh, you did this thing yesterday that you're not doing today, and now I feel bad about it. It's over time, things change. So if we have a structure saying every single year on this specific day, we're going to talk through and evaluate our previous year and see if there's new things, because we're changing people, so there's going to be new stuff, and we have a structure in place to address different things. And that works for physical relationship stuff, but it also works just for in general relationship things.
It's your relationship state of the union.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's smart though. Like I like that.
And things can be brought up at any day of the year as well, but
But
that's
it's just
like
like
a safe place that we know if it's something tough that's hard to bring up just on a Tuesday, then there is a place for it. So
Yeah, but we also have like a good structure of routines of, we have a monthly budget meeting. You have a weekly budget spreadsheet entering. We have church every week where it's also a vulnerable place where we can go and like talk our highs and lows with a community of people, which is huge. if we did this like on our own, it'd be so much tougher. But having a community of people, whether that's family or friends or a church, is such a like huge benefit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But sex is good. That's
I think my favorite relationship moment I've seen this trip was.
If you say Newt Gingrich,
It's exactly what I was going to say.
No.
It really was like a married couple moment. It like obviously you guys are great together beyond that, but it was like the most marriage moment I've seen. So for anybody, here's the story.
Let me preface it by saying I am pretty annoying a lot of the time.
So well, that's why it was so funny, because to me it seemed like such a little thing, and then I'm sure you had heard so much of that stuff on the road trip that it was like finally to your boiling point. So Pow essentially just like made a very like random comment that really had no levity to anything in the moment.
Yeah, it was halfway between just an observation and a pun and like a random joke, not necessarily directed towards you guys, but if you heard it and laughed, I mean, hey, all the better benefit.
We were getting done eating at Crazy Carl's, getting ready to go to the New Belgium brewery, and Pow just randomly said, it wasn't even like, he wasn't even yelling it. It was just like a quiet comment in the moment, just said, New Belgium, Newt Gingrich, or Newt Gingrich, New Belgium. And I was sitting there, like, I heard him say that. I made no, like, I registered it, but that was it. I was like, okay, like, he just said that random thought. And there was at least like 2 or 3 rests after that until Mikayla goes, will you stop being so weird? Or like, it's like, you need to like relax on being so weird. And I was like, huh. Like, all right, well, I didn't think that was that out of the ordinary. And then she goes, he's just doing it for attention. and the whole time, Pow, like from my perspective, because I'm in the back seat, Pow's just sitting there like, not even like acknowledging what's happening. that like he should be like scolded for this. But it was fun. It was funny. It was just a funny little like just small moment that like really had no. It wasn't an issue. It was just a quick, funny thing between the two of you that was very much like, okay, I get that you two live together and like experience a lot of each other's lives so much that like just the littlest thing could like.
Yeah. When that's like the 90th thing like that he said that day, it's hard to just continue to just ignore it and not say anything. And like I feel like I laugh at you 90% of the time.
Yeah.
And then every once in a while I'm just like,
it's like that's enough.
That
like I've reached my pun limit.
Yeah, and then nothing was said about it in the moment. Like after I was like, you need to tone it down and like whatever. Nothing was said, and then the next morning we brought it up because you were like, yeah, that was kind of like rude of you, and I was like, no, you were being dumb.
I also might want to like note that I did not know that conversation took place, and then brought it up last night.
Yeah, and so then last night, like Dakota's telling Pow like, oh, like that was fun, and yeah, telling him about that moment, and so it just got brought up multiple times in the weekend, and it's just a good example of like little stuff that's just like
that made it even funnier though that you guys had the conversation beforehand. That so what seemed like an insignificant moment in the time, all 3 of us made like very like cognizant thoughts of it. Mine being that it was hilarious. Like
the situation, not necessarily my joke.
Right.
Not the joke. The joke was not hilarious.
The situation in and of itself was
like
hilarious.
a 5 out of 10 max. Yeah.
Right.
But that was, I think the fact that the small moment, like life is just made up of like infinite small moments. We have a ton of those. Most of them are good. Some of them are bad. And some of them are just funny in retrospect.
I thought that one was kind of it was a nice middle. It was a nice like rotation of different emotions.
Because it also, I think
and now it's funny.
Every relationship, friendships, family, whatever, but especially like couple relationships go through those little things where it's just little annoyances. And they're not bad things. They're not huge. It's not like, oh, like, you know, we're in financial ruin or like I'm depressed or whatever. It's just like a little annoying thing. You know, I think of Everybody Loves Raymond. Like, they're tiny little fights they have, like, every episode. You know, any sitcom, I guess. Like, those little things, they can pile up, and they can, like, be a big deal, especially if you're not communicating enough to, like, openly, like, say, like, the root of why you're having little fights like that. But I really like that this is just a good microcosm of our relationship, because it was a little thing. We all had an experience of it, and before, like, it grew out of hand, it, like, snowballed to something, or like we just tucked it down and let it fester and blow up in a fight later, we had talked about it, like, just on our own. When we got time alone, we just were like, hey, let's sort of, I mean, it wasn't as calm as say, hey, let's talk about this. We got there. And
obviously I wasn't in on the conversation that you all had, but I like the idea of you being like, you know, you really came at me about that Newt Gingrich thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it,
and it was
it is.
So that had kind of been festering for you.
And so, yeah, and so it was good because it was like enough to where we kind of we came to a good point with it, and that's how we really make sure we don't really leave stuff lingering.
Yeah, that's good.
And so if we want to end every conversation at least with a shared, like, moving towards something else. It might be a compromise.
Yeah.
It might be like one person just saying I'm sorry and then moving on. But as long as we don't end it being like, okay, well, you're wrong and I'm right, and then just like leave it, not speak about it again.
Yeah, I think I've told people before, like, one of the things that I think helps our relationship be the most successful is, every disagreement or problem, we say what we're going to do differently in the future. And I mean, I try, but you literally don't do it wrong ever again. Like, it's like, hey, in the future, can you not interrupt me when I'm doing this, or like whatever.
Or like put the plate upside down on the trash, so that way it can be pushed down as opposed to being up.
Whatever. Like, you're so good at like being like remembering the conversation, remembering what your next step is, and doing it. And I have friends that I feel like they just have the same arguments every single time. And that's not like the worst thing ever, but I think it's such a huge thing that, like, you have an argument, you figure out what the root of that is, you both say what you're going to do differently, and you both move forward and do that differently is huge.
Also, the fact that, like, that also, like, causes problems too when you have to repeat yourself and you have to, like, constantly, like, you know, you're constantly having the same argument, like you said. And it's like that in and of itself is an argument.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's like you're not respecting the thing that I asked you, or like you're not making any like registration in your head that you're willing to change this,
like
or willing
I said,
to like do something for me.
Yep.
That's where a lot of the grace is, because if that happens, which she knows this with me, I just have a bad memory. And so if like I ask something, it's because I've forgotten and I want to know the information. And she's done a much better job of not taking that as like, oh, I didn't care enough to remember the first
Like
time.
my schedule.
Yeah.
I would get so annoyed at first because he was like, wait, you work today? And I'm like, yeah, it's the same as,
Every
and I
single
would
week
get
of the
upset.
past
It's
year.
like, that could be such an easy thing that you like build resentment over. But then you like had to be vulnerable and say, like, when I ask you something, it's hard for me to ask because I have to admit that I don't know something, and that's hard to do. And so what I did was I have a weekly chart of my schedule every week that I print out and hang on the wall so that you know what I'm doing.
And I'm more visual because like I can just look rather than like, that's, like I said, a benefit of her being loving to put things in a visual format and me being able to understand things in a visual format. So that essentially solved the problem that could have just lingered in perpetuity forever if we hadn't talked about it. And we're not perfect by any means. Like, we argue and we mess up and we do things wrong, and we're also less than a year into our marriage. So check back with us in 20 years, So we're not saying we're high and mighty compared to anybody else, but so far we feel like we've got a good structure for these things to go well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad that, it's great to hear that because, like I said before, for some reason, I like that it's not the case where so many people get married and then things change or things, whatever. Like, that just seems to be like the
norm, kind of.
Or even if it's not the norm, it's like what's put out there in the world.
Sure.
Like, that's what people...
Like the narrative.
Yeah. And so it's nice to know that that's not the case with you two, but also that very well could not be the case in a lot of relationships, but that's just what gets put out there. And I think that also scares a lot of people into the idea of marriage or the idea of like even being in a committed relationship in general.
Yep.
So to hear you guys talk about that stuff is very comforting and very like, I think it's good information to have out there.
Yeah, and we established a habit of being vulnerable with each other from the very beginning because she was in Billings for a summer, and then she was going to be moving to Texas. So we kind of started the relationship knowing, oh, it's, this is kind of more of a summer fling, and then it's going to be over by the end of the summer. So I had no problem being just super vulnerable.
There's no pressure. We were like, oh, well, we're never going to see each other again, so we might as well just like be our
ourselves,
full selves with each other.
So it's like, oh, if I can just be totally open and be myself and be funny and stupid and like vulnerable when necessary with her, and if she doesn't like it, it's like, oh, that's fine. This wasn't going to really work out anyway. And then she still loved me, and so then it's like, oh, shit, I guess I have to move to Texas.
Well, also it's like, maybe that vulnerability is what made you care about each other more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like rather than just thinking, well, this is just a quick, like this isn't going to last forever. Like let's just make this more physical or more like, there's no reason to open up because you went the opposite way.
Yeah.
Yep.
And from the beginning, the vulnerability meant we weren't playing any games. And that was huge because I guess neither of us necessarily realized how sick of playing games we were in a relationship. But it's like, yeah, I don't want to want you
to try to interpret what this means. Like, oh, like you said this, but do you really mean this? Are you trying to like manipulate and get like there was just none of that.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, if you have something you're thinking about, ask me. If you're worried about something, ask me. Like, and like being honest and vulnerable enough to be like, hey, like I want to be in a relationship with you. We're not seeing other people. We're not doing anything like that. And all the little things that can take a long while for people just starting out in a relationship to like work through and sort of dance around. My funny sort of example of that, to bring it back to poops, is it's always like a good icebreaker of mine. And I did this with her.
You've done this a lot.
The very first time that we hung out, like she went to the bathroom and came back, and I was like, "How was your poop?" And then she laughed, and either she's gonna laugh, and then cool, the ice is broken. We can talk poops for the rest of our lives openly, or she's gonna be offended, and she's not the one for me. And so like it's an instant like vulnerability, wall broken down type of thing, and it's not the same for everybody. The more of a social butterfly you are, you can tend towards those things. Absolutely 100%, I would say if anybody can and has the opportunity to, go to therapy, because that's where the intent is to break down the walls that you put up for yourself and get to the root cause and find out how to fix things. We do that a lot naturally. Not to say we wouldn't benefit from therapy, but we both know enough about therapy and know, like I said, bringing in an analytical perspective and a faith perspective, we still probably could and should go to therapy. But anybody, if you're wondering like, oh, how do I get to the point where I can be open and vulnerable and like feel joy in like the smallest things? It's like you can go to therapy, find like trusted people, like for me through like a faith community, because that has therapeutic value as well. I believe on a spiritual level, and then also on a practical level of being around people that you talk to on a frequent basis and that like
hold you accountable,
care about you. Eating with people, having a meal with somebody in your house, and like is just a huge thing. And then not everybody has family, not everybody has a stable work situation, not everybody has friends, and not everybody has a reliable faith community, But finding something like that where you can have people you trust that do care about you, and whether that is through a therapist, is absolutely vital to a flourishing life. And we have a lot of resources for that. We even have this, like, we're not paying you for this therapy session, but we've been talking a lot about our relationship, and so I thank you for free therapy.
But also, it's worth noting, you're the first couple to be on my show.
Couple of idiots.
Well, I will say
Newt Gingriches over here.
I'll wrap this episode up by saying this has been a very fun trip. I honestly, most of the time, I'm the one doing the schedule. Like, I'm the one, like, planning things. So it's actually been very relieving to just, like follow you guys and be like, you guys got the plan. Let's do what you guys are doing. And I'm, like, this is a cool place. This is a cool place. Like, I wasn't planning on coming here. Because I think in my head, a lot of the times, I have expectations of things. Like, if I'm like, we're going to go here, and I have this certain expectation, and it never gets met because I've already, like, built it up in my head. So to have zero expectation, show up somewhere, or, like, go to a pizza place that I've never heard of before, try pizza I've never tried before, different breweries that I would never have thought of. It's like, this was a fun experience. And I was just thinking last night when I was going to bed, I was like, unlike most trips that feel like they just fly by, this one has felt like it's been the right amount of time. We've paced everything out very well. It doesn't feel like go, 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 go. But it also doesn't feel like, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything at home. Or I don't feel like I'm like rushing to get back home. So overall, this has been a very enjoyable trip. And thank you for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for coming. Like I said, it's great. The fact that I got to spend my 30th with you, my sister, and you. I said you as I was looking at you. So, with Dakota and my wife and my sister, it was incredible.
And Caitlin.
And Caitlin, yes. Yeah. I felt very loved, and I'm just having a great time at every little thing. We didn't even mention half of the stuff. We didn't mention the giant comic book store.
Oh, yeah. We went to Mile High Comic.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Bar, which is cool. It's like a super like Denver sports themed bar where they do a podcast as well. Got to check that out. And then, tonight we didn't.
It's not over yet.
Yeah. So stoked for the game. Do you have a final prediction for the game? By the way, score.
Not score. I'm obviously going to say Denver Nuggets are going to win, and we're going to be right there for it. Jokic player of the game. That's my prediction.
Yeah. You got any wrapping up thoughts on the week so far or the game coming up ahead, babe?
No, I'm excited for the game. I don't know.
Yeah.
And you have a thing.
Yeah, I have like class tonight too before the game, so that's okay. I just love that Forest bar. That's my highlight of the weekend.
I could tell. And you know what? Honestly, that also, I've talked about this fairly recently on the show. Seeing other people's joy brings me joy. Sure. And like, not to say that like, I did enjoy that bar. Like, is it a place I probably would have ever gone on my own? Maybe not. But like, just knowing that you were having a good time and you were really enjoying it made me enjoy it more.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
So like, I think that's a very like, that's a thing that people need to like register too. Like, it's not all about you. Like, I would have never gone there. You were like, let's go here. I did like it. I thought it was a great vibe.
Yeah.
But even more so, I enjoyed that you enjoyed it.
Yeah. You could have spent that whole time being like, oh, this is fine, but
Let's
I wish
go
we
watch
were
a
somewhere
sports
else.
bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I do all the time.
Yeah.
It's good to be forced into doing other things that you're not normally used to doing.
I think that for me is why the museum was one of my highlights. Because it was not something I would normally do, and I had a great time doing something different. So it's different, and it was really fun. Whereas the comic book store was also high up there, but I kind of knew the level of fun I was going to have there. and then the Avs game. I've done things like that before, like going to sporting events. So I knew I'd have a good time, but the fact that it was a new experience in a hockey game, so it's really tough for me to choose the best out of all of them, but I think that the game tonight is going to be the best out of all.
I think I would have to agree with that too because of the magnitude of the game.
Yeah.
But I would put Mile High Comic as one of my tops because it's been on my list for so long and I just never did it for why I don't know. Like I always had plenty of time to go there. I just never did. So like having to finally be able to check that off my list and buy stuff from there, like that was kind of a cool mile marker that I got to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we sign off, first of all, thank you very much for actually agreeing to do this on our vacation.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it. It's fun. I'm always enjoying being on your podcast, and I'm glad that you're on with it too. And this is a fun vacation thing to do.
A lot of firsts. First time on location, first time with a couple, and it's been very nice. First time using mics that may or may not sound good in post-edit, so we'll find out. But anyway, before we sign off, I always like to do a positive or motivational message from our guests to leave with the audience. Who would like to start?
I think you had some maybe Brene stuff planned or something.
I guess my positive motivational message is listen to other people. Like really listen to people. That's the only way that you can learn things. If you're hearing yourself talk, I mean, could be beneficial, but it's just so important to empathize with other people and really hear what they're saying. And I feel like a lot of times we think we're listening, but our brains are going off on our own things and what we're going to say next. And I think I'm a pretty good listener, but I still notice myself consistently like thinking about what I'm going to say next. So just try practicing listening to someone without thinking about what you're going to say next. And if you forget what to say when they're done talking, that's okay. Just listen to other people. Try to empathize with where other people are coming from, and that will bring more wisdom and growth than any of the dumb thoughts you thought were going to say. No, but yeah, listening and empathizing.
I like that.
Yeah, that's excellent. Mine's similar, and I think it makes sense that ours is similar.
You can't copy me.
Okay. Let's see. Hit your same game parlays.
Oh my gosh.
I'd say
DraftKings.
yeah, pretty basic, but it just applies to absolutely every aspect of life. Is just love others. And what that looks like is, in any situation, is there a way that this can benefit somebody else, whether it's in their physical life, in their spiritual life, in their joy, in their comfort, even if that means it decreases something of that for me. And if I can make you more comfortable by giving you my pillow, if I can give you a better experience by giving you the last slice of pizza, if I can let someone else talk when I wanted to talk, that means I'm denying myself and uplifting them. There is never a situation, no matter how bad it gets for yourself, where loving somebody else doesn't have a benefit in and of itself. So if I do something for somebody else out of love to the point that it's total ruin for me, it's still worth it because you got to love somebody else and somebody else felt that love. And that's the core tenet of my faith, and that's the core tenet of how I try to live my life and my relationship and my friendships. Life is a garden. If you plant good things will grow.
I love it. Those are both very well said.
Thank
I think that's a great way to sign off.
Yeah.
And after this, we're going to go enjoy the rest of our vacation. And let's go Nuggets, baby.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Let's go Nugs.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and watching. Much appreciation. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. But most importantly, don't forget, life's a garden. Dig it.
Just gotta keep on keeping on.
Why don't you talk in the microphone? I got a back right here. Back of my back of my back of my back of my back of my
Got it.
my back of my back of my back of my back of my Life's a garden, dig it, you make it work.